'cause you know just what to say. Oh, and I can tell that you're the kind that's used to having things your own way. It's cold outside, but in here the lights make it so hot you sweat, and your clothes cling so tight. Your hair's in your eyes, then you're stepping on shell toes. You feel that you're mine, but you'll see which way the wind blows. Don't ask me why. I just can't say. Music can drive. The sounds will win. Don't ask me why. It's just your
Buenas tardes a todos, por favor, si podemos tomar asiento para dar inicio. Buenas tardes a todos. Vamos a dar inicio con las charlas comerciales. En esta oportunidad vamos a tener a la empresa Anglo Peruana Terra con el gerente general, el señor Les Olga, el señor David Dávila, el jefe de proyectos de APT, y el tema que vamos a tratar hoy es Why do some mines and prospects in Peru lie along imaginary straight lines? Adelante, por favor.
¿Me copian? Bueno, estas charlas consta de dos partes. La primera parte es la introducción, la que voy a hacer, yo le voy a estar explicando, decir qué es Anglo Peruana, qué trabajos hace. Y la segunda parte es la experiencia de Anglo Peruana, principalmente tratando de dar una respuesta por qué están ubicados tales yacimientos en tales lugares y cómo podemos usar esto. Entonces comenzamos por la introducción. Por favor, a ver, la primera. Anglo Peruana Terra tiene su principal lista de clientes, que son Buenaventura, Cerro de Paz, Conexa, Río Tinto, Vale, Volga, etc., ¿no? Anglo Peruana ha tenido 56 clientes, tiene 27 años de experiencia y hemos desarrollado 110 proyectos. Y uno de los logros principales es que tenemos 0 accidentes fatales e incapacitantes, ¿no? Y a la vez tenemos, el máximo número son 356 colaboradores, de los cuales más o menos han sido 100 geólogos, a veces más, menos, depende, ¿no? Nuestra historia. Se fundó en el año 1996 con la consultora minera Anglo-Peruana y se desarrolló en el año 2009, cambió de nombre por cuestiones estratégicas para mayor apoyo a la minería, y en la actualidad tenemos casi 27 años de experiencia, ¿no? Uno de los logros más importantes que consideramos, uno de los dos logros más importantes, es que en el año 99, en apoyo a la compañía Volcan, se encontró los yacimientos Tolorrume Sur y Norte, ¿no? Y otros logros importantes también, que comenzamos en el año 95, 97, 98 a hacer el GMAP, ¿no? Y en el año 2000 ya tuvimos hecho un buen mapa, ¿no? ¿Cuál es nuestra visión? Somos una empresa que brinda servicios geológicos de calidad y soporte de asesoramiento. Nuestra visión es ser una empresa líder en la prestación de servicios geológicos, ¿no? Nuestros valores: seguridad, honestidad, efectividad, unión y respeto, pero principalmente la seguridad en los riesgos laborales es la base de nuestra gestión. Es la unión para aprovechar hacer un trabajo en equipo antes de que uno o dos personas, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son nuestros servicios? Nuestros servicios son servicios de consultoría geológica en la búsqueda de un nuevo yacimiento, nuevo propósito o aumento de la mejora de la calidad del proyecto, ¿no? Servicios de prospección y exploración geológica, principalmente puede ser greenfield, etcétera, ¿no? Y también servicios de outsourcing, que sea la tercerización de yacimiento, ¿no? Estudios petromineragráficos, ¿no? Se hacen secciones delgadas, pulidas, usando microscopio de luz polarizada, ¿no? También tenemos el equipo de Terra para hacer análisis mineralógico de espectrometría de reflectancia, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son nuestros clientes? Esta es la relación que tenemos de todos nuestros clientes, son varios para nombrarlos, son más de 56, ¿no? ¿Por qué elegirlo, no? Anglo Peruana tiene 27 años de experiencia en trabajo de exploraciones geológicas, tenemos geólogos certificados en experiencia en diferentes tipos de yacimientos, como van a ver en el último slide que hemos trabajado en todos los tipos de yacimientos, ¿no? Tenemos un compromiso genuino con la salud y salud ocupacional, tanto para el bienestar de nosotros como de los trabajadores principalmente. Este es nuestro equipo, ¿no? Les hablan como gerente general, Doren en la sugerencia y todas las relaciones de los trabajadores en las diferentes áreas, ¿no? ¿Cuáles son nuestras estadísticas, no? Como todos sabemos, el año 2021, pues bajo la pandemia, bajó un poco el trabajadores, etcétera, pero a la fecha más o menos tenemos 356 colaboradores en el año pasado, 357, que es el máximo valor que hemos tenido, ¿no? Ahora, la seguridad es un factor importante para nosotros. Incidentes, evitar, acá tenemos las estadísticas de incidentes, peligros, y como ya se mencionó, tenemos 0 accidentes incapacitantes, ¿no? Acá tenemos una vista de los 110 proyectos que hemos realizado desde la cordillera del Cóndor hasta Tacna, ¿no? Tanto en la cordillera occidental, oriental, etcétera, ¿no? En oro orogénico hemos hecho un proyecto que es Patás, epigenéticos, Shawindo, Algamarca, Aruntán y varios tipos de yacimientos, ¿no? La arena, en los níquel cobre, las zonas de Portingo María, en esas horas hemos colaborado en varios trabajos, ¿no? Los pórfidos de cobre, tenemos en el sur del Perú, que hemos colaborado, anexa a ayudarles un pórfido que ahora lo están perforando Mónica Lourdes, otro para otro proyecto que es el soldado, etcétera, ¿no? Hay varios proyectos que tenemos adelante, ¿no? Pero lo más importante es que tenemos 55 proyectos de exploración de greenfield que hemos desarrollado en toda la costa peruana, ¿no? Acá es más detalle con los diferentes nombres por los yacimientos in vitro, porque hemos trabajado en Bongará, Florida, Soloco, tenemos Xayipaico, en se ve San Vicente, ¿no? Y todos los yacimientos que hemos trabajado, también tenemos el CIOCG, por ejemplo, Pampa del Pongo, en Raúl Condestable. Uy, ¿qué pasó? Problema de... ya. Hemos trabajado en los CIOCG de Raúl Condestable, Pampa del Pongo y ahorita estamos en el proyecto Shawindo. Dentro de los BMS hemos trabajado en Perú Bar, Palma, Cerro Lindo, María Teresa y algunos más, ¿no? Más que todo proyectos, ¿no? Bueno, como ya lo mencioné, ese es el marco contexto que texto. Entonces ahora va a entrar a hablar Les Olga, que es la parte fundamental de esta conferencia, ¿no? Les.
Good afternoon. Okay, today we're going to consider why some mines and prospects in Peru lie along imaginary straight lines. And to do that, first of all, we're going to start in the United Kingdom and Ireland, particularly Ireland, where in 1968, a student geologist called Mike Russell put 2 lines on a map, the one on the left, showing that many ore bodies lie along 2 geofractures, which he believed lay underneath those 2 lines. A year later, in 1969, Mike added another line to the right, sorry about that. You can't see, but it's the easternmost line there is no mine along that line at this time. It was 1969, but for geological reasons, Mike Russell added another line. In 1972, when he published his PhD, the lines were the same, but this time there was a mine on the line which previously didn't have a mine. It's called Navan, or the Terra mine at Navan. It's to now 120 million tons. It's the biggest zinc mine in Europe, and it's the 8th biggest zinc mine in the world. And the most important thing about this is the line was there before the ore body was found. And this is one of the things that Anglo Peruana like to do. We like to know where the lines are before we find the ore bodies. I'm going to talk about Perubar very quickly because this is where I started out in Peru. This is a blow-up. You can see it's on the Carretera Central from Lima, 50 kilometers inland. The ore body distribution at Perubar is north-northwest. And you'll notice that the Rimac Valley here and continuing here has a deflection where the ore bodies occur. If you look at the geochemistry, zinc in float, the trend is not north-northwest, it's more west-northwest. This is a map that was available around 30 years ago. The ore bodies are in the same place. Sorry. You'll notice the ore bodies are in the same place. You'll notice that coastal batholith is surrounding the ore bodies to the north, west, and east, and also the yellow rock here and here. So it's all surrounded by rocks that are earlier than the ore bodies. They're pre-mineralization. So the only area where you've got rocks of mineralization potential is in this corridor here. And it was originally thought there was a north-northwest trending syncline there. Also, what you can see on this map are north-south faults, northwestern faults, and east-northeast faults. This is a close-up map of the Perubar deposits, but you'll notice there are a number of additional lines now. Here you have a west-northwest line marked by the back wall of the Graciela open pit, and also dikes going here through Juanita and here through Santa Cecilia North are trending 298, more or less 300 degrees, the same as the back wall fault for Graciela. So this is where the ore bodies were. After a little bit of modeling and thinking about this, this is where we decided that they were originally oriented. And in 2006, Mark Pollyand, a student from Geneva University, came up with this model which said that there was dextral movement in this area along a basement fault or a pair of basement faults, and the northeast trending structures were active during sedimentation because you have breccias falling on the off the VMS mineralization which was there first. The model that we came up with for this is that there were west-northwest trending faults on the top left, displaced by a north-south fault, then reactivation of the the west-northwest trending fault, forming up a small pull-apart basin, And then the reason why you have the northeast trending faults is to link the displaced sections of the north-south fault, which was displaced by the movement along the west-northwest fault. So, north-south being one of the structures, we looked to the south of Perubar and we found the Palma deposit. Palma, this is the geology of Palma. The ore body is marked in red there. This is a very old map going back about 20, 25 years. Perubar, you'll notice at the top of the map, lines up along the fault to the right here, not along the fault closest to the ore body. So if that fault exists, you would expect there to be something here in addition to something here. Also, we recognize a 120-degree lineament here passing through an ore body, and it marks the northern extremity of high-grade mineralization in the Palma deposit. Remembering the 300-degree line pulled out by the fault, the backwall fault for the open pit at Graciela, and also the dikes cutting the ore bodies, we put a line in which lines up with the coast here to the west of Huaral, and it also passes through Maria Teresa, which was originally a barite deposit, but changed into a VMS deposit with massive sulfides subsequently, about 1991 or 1992. Maria Teresa is a series of small ore bodies and one big one discovered recently. There's a 120-degree fault, which is mappable through the old open pit, and there's a north-south trending fault here, which moves up like this, and we've mapped it up there, but it could just as easily go straight up to the north, because this area is totally unmapped. It's unknown because it lies underneath the tailings dams. And looking at the ore bodies in the orientation of the ore bodies is between 330 on the left-hand side in Zona Lamina, and on the right-hand side, Zona Calera, the ore bodies line up 320. So it's 20 or 30 degrees displaced from the 120-degree structure. And notice from the center of this series of ore bodies, it's a maximum of 1.4 kilometers radius for the whole ore body. And in fact, on either side of the 120-degree structure, only 500 meters on either side. That can be explained by dextral movement along the 120-degree fault with accompanying radial shearing and tension gashes. I'm pointing out this particular intersection. You'll see there's a north-south valley here, and then a north-south valley here, which seems to be displaced at this point. And there is, in fact, a 120-degree structure, lineament, I should say, because a fault has not been mapped upon it yet. So we put this line in, and there's another deposit, VMS, Aurora Augusta, here, which is on a north-south line from Pampa Virgo, the name of this particular prospect. And it was from this particular prospect that we got the idea of what was happening at Perubar which is a displacement of a north-south structure by a 120-degree structure. So Pampa Virgo, which is still a prospect, is very similar to Peru Bar. The next mine I worked on in Peru was the San Vicente mine. San Vicente mine, on the left-hand side here, that's a 1996 map, shows that the ore bodies line up north-south, probably along basin margin faults, Pucara Basin margin faults, but also you'll notice a lot of west-northwest trending faults. On this side, on the right-hand side, which is a 2016 map of the ore bodies, you'll notice that there are many ore bodies here, which line up along the 120-degree lines that I've put on this map. And the 120-degree lines also define where the ore body changes characteristics from this west-northwest trend, which is in agreement with the faults to the left-hand side. So it's clear here that west-northwest trending structures, or 120-degree trending structures, acted as feeders. This is looking at the San Vicente ore body. North is left on this one, just to explain that the two vertical black lines are the limits of the San Vicente mineralizing system, because on the right-hand side of this vertical line here, to the right you've got leads with low radiogenic components, similarly here, but all the leads in between, which is the mineralizing system of San Vicente, Tiene, they have leads of with high radiogenic components. So that 7 kilometers in a north-south direction. Going back to this one, it's the same one on the left-hand side, same map, but on the right-hand side, I've marked the areas which have been most productive. And you'll notice that I've put a 1 kilometer boundary below and above, and that defines probably 95% of the mineralization that's been mined so far. The small ore bodies to the south and the one to the north, they provided very small tonnages. But the heart of the ore body is what's outlined in red. And through there I've put a line which is called the Los Perdidos San Vicente Ayala line, and it's of a trend 120 degrees. And we believe that is the main feeder which came up and went into other parallel feeders at a higher crustal level. And this is easier to see. Now the width of the ore body, the width of the mineralizing system, is 5 kilometers, normal to the direction of mineralization control. And the ore body itself, the richest part, is only 2 kilometers wide. Okay, now we decided that because we had a good reason for thinking that the feeder system was trending west-northwest, 120 degrees, or to 300 degrees, we put this line through. It's a straight line of exactly 120 degrees. And you'll notice very closely it is to the edge of the Lake Junin basin. And also the line delimits, marks the southern margin of this Pampa de Lampa basin. So there are two geomorphological reasons for believing that this line exists over a long distance. Along this line, not only do you have the San Vicente mine, you've got Colquijirca and Raura. The Chalipaiko mine seems to be poco displaced, so that's not very encouraging, except when you look at this plan here, which shows the ore bodies in red, the 120-degree lineament here separating Marañón basement from Pucara in a basin margin situation, going back into Marañón complex, and the ore body lies here. You'll notice there are some north-south structures here and some close to north-south faults. When you look at a section across there, the known mineralization at Chalipico is just this small part here, just above where it says surface. And it's possible that, well, the feeder is here, what we believe is the feeder. This is the long lineament. And it's quite possible that the main part of the ore body is in this 4 to 6 kilometer down dip potential. More recently, other deposits have been found along this line. First of all, Kikai, then Yumpag, which is a new silver mine run by Buenaventura, and Los Perdidos, which is a VMS, about the same distance from the coast as Peruana. They were all discovered after we put that line on the map. And all of these deposits have north-south, evidence of north-south structures, which could locate the ore body along the west-northwest lines. Also, we put a line further down here to mark the other margin of this pull-apart basin, and we found that the Elida project here, Iskai Cruz mine, and Huaron mine also lie along this west-northwest trend. So it's clear that this west-northwest trend seems to be very interesting. Then we did some, APT did some work at Atacocha, which is here, just to the north of Cerro de Pasco. And I've included Cerro de Pasco here. And I should have put a west-northwest line through Cerro de Pasco, because there is one too. At Atacocha, you have a very strong north-south line separating the Santa Barbara on the right-hand side above from part of the San Gerardo mineralization and Atacocha. But you'll notice in the southern part, it's very difficult to see here, but on the left-hand side of the fault, which is the Milpo Atacocha fault, there seems to have been some displacement of the ore bodies, which are marked in red, and also further to the north, the green of the Santa Barbara mineralization on the right-hand side goes further to the north. And what we have decided happened is that between mineralization and today, which is about 30 million years, there was 500 meters of sinistral movement along this Milpo Atacocha fault. We also noted a 120-degree lineament coming through here, and it lines up along all the centers of the intrusives here and also the mineralization. So we have evidence again for mineralization being controlled by a 120-degree structure. Okay, moving on. At Atacocha, I've put a northwest line to show that there is a 120-degree line there. Further to the south, there's another 120-degree line joining Yauliyacu and the Domo de Yauli mines of Huaripampa, San Cristobal, and Aichagua and Zoraida. In fact, this line is just slightly displaced from the 120-degree line. The 120-degree line is plotted also, so I don't have an answer for that as yet. But looking at the two mines of Iskai Cruz and Yauliyacu, which are shown on this mine, Iskay Cruz above and Yauliyacu below, you'll notice that there are a number of deposits lined up along a straight line between Iskay Cruz and Yauliyacu. From north, moving southwards, a very old mine, first of all, that hasn't been explored recently, then the Santander mine, then the Victoria mine, which was mined recently on an artisanal level, Ariana, which is Southern Peaks copper project, and Yauliyacu, which was a Glencore mine until recently. All of these have 120-degree structures running through them also, as you will note from this map. If you look in the northern part of this map, you have the Iskay Cruz mine. If you follow the 120-degree structure, you come to the Waron mine. Immediately south of the Waron mine, you've got the Animon mine. On the next line, you've got the old mine. Then on the next line down, the next mine is Santander, Travali's mine at the moment. And along the 120-degree line, you've also got the Alpamarca open pit and plant. But you'll also notice that along this line, you have lots of old mines also following that line. Further south, you've got Mina Victoria and lots of old mines in this area. And again, along the same line, you've got a cluster of small mines here. Next one down, Ariana, which is a copper project from Southern Peaks, and the Yauliyacu mine. What's interesting about these lines is if you look at their spacing on here, 10.6 kilometers, 9 kilometers, 10.1 kilometers, 10.8 kilometers, and this one's a bit more at 13, but maybe Iskay Cruz hasn't been in the right position. Maybe there's an even bigger ore body just to the south of Iskay Cruz. But what is interesting is the repeatability. I mean, every 10 kilometers, you seem to have a west-northwest line, 120-degree line, controlling mineralization. Another line that we discovered when we were doing some work at Uchuchakwa, up here in the north. Uchuchakwa was interesting because it lies on a north-south structure. It lies on a west-northwest, 120-degree structure. But also, it lines up with Yumpag, which is on the San Vicente lineament. That's a direction we hadn't come across before. And what's at the junction between that northeast trending line and the line that we'd already identified from Atacocha? Here, Ayahuilca, one of the biggest zinc mines found in Peru so far. So again, Ayahuilca was predictable, although Ayahuilca was actually found before we put the lines on the map. However, going back to this, the previous map, you'll notice now, apart from the 120-degree lines and the north-south lines, we've got a south-southwest line between Iskay Cruz and Yauliyacu, and a northeastern line between Uchuchakwa and Ayahuilca. But this diagram here demonstrates that these may not actually represent imaginary lines at depth, because all of these deposits can be explained by intersections of west-northwest and north-south lines. So we don't need the north-northwest line, the one that goes from Iskay Cruz to Yauliyacu. It's not necessary. There may be a deep structure there, but we don't know. And similarly, in the north, between Uchuchakwa and Ayahuilca, that line may not exist as a major structure at depth, although there is a fault along that line called the Cachipampa fault, which you'll see later. Moving further south now to Cerro Lindo, when you put Cerro Lindo on the regional map, you'll see Perubar, Palma, extended southwards, comes to Raul Condestable. Following a 120-degree line from Raul Condestable takes you to Cerro Lindo, which is also on a north-south structure, and El Carmen, which is a group of VMS deposits that Nexa are exploring to the south there. This is a geochemistry, copper in soils around the Cerro Lindo mine, and you'll notice that it has an orientation more or less west-northwest, or 120 degrees. When you look at the geology, the ore body is in red here, and I've drawn a line here along the contact between the coastal batholith and the chasma group, which here are rhyolites and dacites. And you'll notice that this line goes straight through the ore bodies. So that's a hypothetical line. We can't prove it, but it's right underneath the ore bodies. And the ore bodies also terminate on a west and a west, southwest, east-northeast orientation, northeast-southwest, called the Topara fault. Look. Okay, thanks. I'll have to speed up a bit. This is a close-up. This is the Topara lineament going northeastwards. The next one shows another lineament called the Pukasala Sur lineament, which if you look at this map, you can see something sort of circular, apparently, here. And that, we think, is a rhyolite dome. We believe that the north-south structures represented by the dikes, which move up and tend to go around this, what is assumed to be a rhyolite dome. The little red dots are geochemical anomalies, copper in soils also. So it would appear here that these two lineaments may exist because they could have been responsible for the location of this rhyolite dome. So, but the west-northwest direction is also very important. Okay, so coming back to the general trend, from the evidence we've got so far, it's the west-northwest trend which is more reliable, or we can have more confidence in the 120-degree lines than any of the others, because the north-south lines tend to be displaced by the west-northwest. And geology follows these lines. When you look at places like here, which is close to Shalipayco, the deep lineament, which I'm proposing, also coincides with a fault. Here, the Marañón complex comes down and is terminated by this 120-degree structure. Here, if I can find the little dot, yeah, just a little bit higher up here, you've got a contact between intrusives and tertiary volcanics, which again appears to be reflecting these deep lineaments. Copper. You'll notice the porphyry coppers in the south, from Cerro Verde, Don Javier, Cuajone, and Cuayaveco, lie on a 120-degree structure. Los Calatos in the middle, just off, and Chapi and Toquipala also on north-south lines and different 120-degree lines. And the Incapucio fault system is, in fact, I believe, a union between some of the northwest structures and the 120-degree structures. So maybe the Incapuccio fault system doesn't exist. Maybe it's just an interaction between the two other structures at depth. If you were in any doubt as to the importance of the 120 degrees structures, you'll notice that this is a map showing salt domes in the Pucara Basin in the north and central Peru. And you'll notice they line up generally along a 300, 120 degree trend, and maybe a little bit offset from the north-south trend. But also the 120 degree structure is very good at following coastline positions, for example, here between Perubar and Maria Teresa, and here to the north as well, west-northwest of Lambayeque. Why do some mines and prospects in Peru lie along imaginary straight lines? I suggest that at depth there are very important old structures which can't deviate. They were originally straight and they've stayed straight. But as you come closer to surface, they can move about a bit. So they're very difficult to see sometimes. And that's it. So there's still time for questions. I'm sure there won't be any. Okay, well, just to reiterate, the lesson that I believe can be taken from what I've just described to you is that there are lines at depth, the most important one trending west-northwest or 120 degrees, and others going north-south. All other lines can be explained by other means. But none of these lines have actually led to the discovery of an ore body yet. The best way to discover these lines is to find a series of ore bodies which line up exactly along a trend. And the lesson from this is never ignore faults of west-northwest trend or north-south trend. And whenever you find an intersection of those two, normally the ore bodies are within 2 kilometers either side of the point of intersection in general, but more often within a kilometer of the point of intersection.
Hola. Felicitaciones, Let's. David, una presentación muy bien ilustrada. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. En la parte central del Perú, ¿existe la posibilidad, con tanta mineralización que se ve de tipo polimetálico generalmente, existe la posibilidad que haya un sistema diseminado tipo pórfido? Si es sí o no.
Claro. If you look at some of these deposits are very close together. On some of these lines, there are multiple deposits. 4 deposits, Cerro Verde, Don Javier, Cuajone, and Quellaveco on the same line. So what's in between? I mean, maybe there are others there. Going back a bit further, look at the number of ore bodies that you have, or mines, on this plan, on straight lines, and look at the places where there are nothing. This line is very important. Between San Vicente and Los Perdidos, there's 315 kilometers, and there's only, including San Vicente, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 7 ore bodies along that straight line. I mean, not deviating from the line, exactly along the line. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for more. And also, sometimes the 120-degree structures seem to be very closely spaced. So maybe we're missing a lot. So, yeah, I think central Peru is much more prospective than even we think now. And already we accept that it's very prospective. And also for copper. Why not? any more questions? No.
Olá, olá. Quando tu correlaciona essas linhas 120, principalmente nestes depósitos VMS,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that very clearly. Can you speak a bit?
quando tu correlaciona el trend 120
Yeah.
passando por los depósitos VMS, Cerro Lindo, Palma, Maria Teresa, esse lineamento, então, tu pensa que poderia ser os lineamentos de la formação de las cuencas, de la época distensionada de las cuencas para la ascensão desses fluidos VMS, então?
I think these west-northwest structures are, in fact, they're more precise than that. They're actually 300 degrees to 120 degrees. And I believe that they're fundamental to the basement. They were there probably from Precambrian times. And they reactivate, but they can't move because of the depth at which they're at. When these faults come closer to surface, they can spread out a bit. There's less rock above it to restrain them. So what I do is I put a 120-degree line on the map and find out which mines or which structures tie in with that, because there isn't a 120-degree line every kilometer, but I've demonstrated that there's one every 10 kilometers. Now imagine how many lines you can put on Peru if you draw a 120-degree line every 10 kilometers. So the potential for ore bodies, other ore bodies, is huge. And it's clear that not every line will have the same number or in the same position ore deposits as others. And also it's particularly along intersections with north-south structures that the ore bodies seem to occur, probably because the intersections cause structural problems, more permeability, and the mineralizing fluids can rise at these junctions between the north-south and 120 degrees. But the 120-degree one seems to be more important because it displaces, or it's seen to displace other faults more often, particularly the north-south ones. Did that answer your question? Yeah? What I should tell you is that these lines are very difficult to see on the surface for the reason I mentioned before. They're there at depth, they're very straight, but the closer you come to surface, the more they can spread out. So you've got to have faith sometimes.
¿Aló?
Roman.
¿Aló?
Hola.
¿Aló? ¿Les?
Yes.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas
Hay un
tardes.
lineamiento que empieza en mina Teresa, pasa por la mina Raúl, se proyecta a mina Marcona, y sigue hacia lo que es el yacimiento que está cubierto de hierro al sur de Marcona, y son yacimientos tipo IOCG en cierta forma, ¿no? Aunque María Teresa es diferente. La distancia entre estas ocurrencias son de 11 kilómetros o un múltiplo de 11.
Ajá.
Ese intervalo se corresponde con 146 ocurrencias de mineral que yo he estudiado en Chile y en Perú, y corresponde indistintamente de las rocas que albergan el yacimiento, o de sus edades de formación. Hay lineamientos en la costa de Chile, hay lineamientos a media altura en la costa chilena y en la cordillera. Inexplicablemente, la distancia entre los cuerpos son 11, 22, 33 y así sucesivamente la distancia entre los cuerpos. La explicación para este número no lo tengo, pero más del 70% de estas ocurrencias siguen el patrón de 11 kilómetros mínimo. En ocasiones, como por ejemplo en Chuquicamata, en este momento no recuerdo qué otro lugar, hay yacimientos satélites que están a los 6 kilómetros. Curiosamente, ¿no? Al sur oeste de Chuquicamata hay varias ocurrencias de estas a 6 kilómetros, que es el múltiplo o submúltiplo, la mitad de 11 kilómetros. Gracias.
Indeed, you mentioned the around 11 point something kilometers for the spacing between these ore bodies. It depends in which orientation you measure the distance, because like I showed you earlier, at San Vicente, from north to south, the distance is 7 kilometers, but normal to the feeders, it's only 5 kilometers wide, so the spacing is 5 kilometers there, not 7 kilometers, for example. But I was only dealing with the central part of Peru because it's the easiest one to deal with. It's where we've done most of this type of work so far. So there are other things in other parts of Peru that need attention.
El análisis que refiero de 11 kilómetros es en el Google Earth en imágenes verticales, no inclinadas, y solamente llegan hasta lo que es Las Bambas, Constancia, Tintaya, Bolivia también cumple con el requisito de 11 kilómetros o múltiplo de 11. No he ido a la selva, a San Vicente, esas zonas no las he tocado todavía porque no tengo información.
Well, it's interesting that your 11 kilometers is very, very close to my 10 kilometers between Yauliyacu and Sky Cruz.
Bueno, yo he hecho un estudio y también tengo información de Irlanda y también tengo información de Canadá, donde se cumple también la distancia. Es una distancia sistemática, allá son 20 kilómetros. Hay información bibliográfica en este aspecto, la puedo proporcionar. Y lo sorprendente en el caso de Perú y Chile es que estas distancias también se reflejan en el mar, en el Pacífico. En las imágenes del satélite están puestas fracturas en el océano que están entre 10 a 11 kilómetros de espaciamiento. Y es muy probable que estas fracturas que son este-oeste se proyecten al continente. Repito, independientemente de la orogénesis o de lo que esté sucediendo en la corteza Perú-Chile.
Very interesting. A lot of work needs to be done on these lines. This is just what I've described today is just one part of Peru and concentrating on one set of lines, but which I think are extremely important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Les. Agradecemos a todos por su participación y en 15 minutos o 4 de la tarde en punto estamos continuando con la segunda charla comercial. Los esperamos. Gracias.
Thank you.